Emma adjusted the bow on her daughter Lily's lavender dress for the third time, trying to ignore the lump forming in her throat. Weddings always did this to her, brought back memories of what she had once dreamed of, what she had lost, and what she feared she might never have again. Lily, 6 years old and brimming with joy, twirled in a circle, her curls bouncing. "Do I look like a princess, Mommy?" "You look like the prettiest princess here," Emma said, her smile soft but tinged with sadness. They were early to the reception, so she had plenty of time to notice the details that reminded her she didn't belong. The sparkling chandeliers, the couples holding hands, the laughter spilling from tables filled with families. She and Lily had been placed at a small table near the back, away from the bridal party and the married couples. Emma didn't need to guess why. People never knew what to do with her anymore. A single mom at a wedding was like an unspoken reminder that happy endings weren't guaranteed. She told herself she didn't care. She had Lily. That was enough. But when the music started and couples moved toward the dance floor, Emma's chest tightened. She watched the bride and groom sway together, radiant and in love, while whispers of pity brushed against her from other tables. Poor Emma, alone again, just her and her daughter. She bent toward Lily, who was happily drawing flowers with crayons on a napkin. Emma kissed her head and tried to pretend she didn't feel invisible. "Is this seat taken?" The deep, commanding voice startled her. Emma looked up, and nearly dropped her glass of water. Standing before her was Alexander Hayes, CEO of Hayes Enterprises. He was the sort of man who filled glossy magazines and business columns, his face instantly recognizable, strong jawline, dark hair slicked back with effortless precision, and eyes that seemed to pierce right through a person. Emma blinked. No, please." He slid into the chair beside her, moving with the kind of confidence that made the air shift around him. The tailored charcoal suit he wore fit like it had been sewn on him, and the faint scent of cedar cologne reached her nose. "You're Emma, right?" His voice was quieter now, low enough for only her to hear. Her eyes widened. "You know my name. I make it a point to," he said smoothly. Then, with a glance at the curious eyes around the room, he leaned closer, so close she could feel the warmth of his breath against her ear. "Do me a favor. Pretend we're a couple, just for tonight." Emma's heart stumbled. "What?" Before she could react, Alexander placed his hand gently over hers on the table. His touch was steady, warm, deliberate, the kind of touch that looked convincing to anyone watching. "Don't look so shocked," he murmured. "I'll explain later. But trust me, it'll be worth your while." Emma tried to pull her hand back, but his gaze caught hers and held it. She saw something there she hadn't expected. Not arrogance, but calculation mixed with a strange flicker of vulnerability. Around them, the whispers had already started. "Isn't that Alexander Hayes?" With her, for the first time that evening, Emma wasn't invisible. She was the subject of curiosity, even envy. Lily looked up from her napkin, her eyes wide. "Mommy, is he your boyfriend?" Alexander chuckled, low and warm. "Something like that," he said, giving Lily a conspiratorial wink. She giggled, instantly charmed. Emma's pulse raced. She should have said no, should have demanded an explanation. But instead, she found herself sitting a little straighter, her cheeks warm as Alexander draped an arm casually along the back of her chair. When the music shifted to a slow song, Alexander stood and offered his hand. "Dance with me." Emma shook her head quickly. "I haven't danced in years." "Then it's about time," he said, his smile easy but his tone leaving little room for argument. "Trust me." Something in his eyes, steady, unwavering, made her place her hand in his. He led her to the dance floor, guiding her into his arms as though they had done this 100 times before. His hand rested lightly at her waist, his other hand holding hers with quiet authority. The world around them blurred. "You're good at this," Emma murmured, her voice shaky. "So are you," he said smoothly, his eyes locked on hers. "But I already knew you would be." She frowned. "You keep saying that. How do you know me?" His lips curved, but his gaze softened. "Because I've noticed you. More than you think." Her chest tightened. Before she could ask what he meant, the song ended and applause rose around them. Alexander didn't let go of her hand. He guided her back to their table, where Lily was watching with a wide grin. The evening unfolded like a dream Emma hadn't realized she wanted. People approached their table now, friends of the bride, relatives, curious to meet the mysterious woman who had captured the attention of Alexander Hayes. For once, Emma wasn't the single mom sitting alone. She was someone seen, chosen. Alexander played the role flawlessly. He laughed at her jokes, leaned in as if she were the only woman in the room, even fetched Lily an extra slice of cake. And yet, beneath the performance, Emma sensed something real. His attention never wavered, his charm never felt forced when it was directed at her. Later, when the chatter had quieted and Lily leaned sleepily against Emma's shoulder, Alexander spoke softly. "I owe you an explanation." Emma tilted her head. "That would be nice." He hesitated, his jaw tightening before he exhaled. "At events like this, people expect things from me. Matches, proposals. I needed a reason to avoid a few persistent introductions tonight. So I'm your excuse?" Emma asked, arching a brow. "Not an excuse," he corrected. His gaze held hers with startling intensity. "A choice." Her breath caught. The words shouldn't have meant so much. This was pretend, a charade, and yet, the sincerity in his tone made something dangerous flutter in her chest. The night wound down. Guests departed, the music softened, and the newlyweds slipped away in a flurry of rose petals. Alexander walked Emma and Lily to their car, his hand brushing lightly against her back as though guiding her, protecting her. "Thank you," Emma said quietly. "For whatever this was." He studied her in the moonlight, his expression unreadable. "It doesn't have to end tonight." She blinked. "What do you mean?" His smile was faint, almost daring. "Let's just say, I like pretending with you. Maybe next time, it doesn't have to be pretend." Emma's heart pounded as he opened the car door for her. She slid inside, her hands trembling against the steering wheel. Lily was already dozing in the back seat, her little head against the window. As Emma drove away, the echo of Alexander's words lingered in her mind. She had spent years building walls, telling herself she was fine on her own, that love was something she no longer needed. But tonight, under chandeliers and whispers, a powerful man had sat beside her, held her hand, and told her she was his choice. For the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to wonder. What if this wasn't pretend at all? Emma smoothed the lavender bow on her daughter Lily's dress, watching as the 6-year-old spun happily in a circle. The skirt puffed out, and Lily giggled, her curls bouncing with each twirl. "You look like a princess," Emma said softly. "You look like a princess too, Mommy," Lily replied, though Emma didn't believe it. Her navy dress was simple and understated. She hadn't come to impress anyone, only to support her cousin on her big day. Weddings, after all, were complicated for her. Being a single mother meant she often felt like she was walking into a room alone, even when Lily was by her side. The whispers were subtle, the pitying looks quieter still, but she always felt them. Tonight was no different. The reception was dazzling, chandeliers glittering above, laughter filling the air, tables crowded with couples and families. Except for theirs, Emma and Lily sat at a small table near the back, half hidden by the floral arrangements. Emma pretended not to notice the glances. She came alone again, poor thing. She focused on Lily, who happily colored flowers on a napkin with the crayons she'd tucked into her purse. Emma loved her daughter fiercely, but sitting through a wedding made her chest ache with memories of what she had lost. Once upon a time, she'd imagined herself in a white gown, walking hand in hand with someone who would never leave. Life had turned out differently. The music shifted, couples gliding onto the dance floor. Emma swallowed hard and busied herself with her water glass. She could get through this. She always did. Then came the voice. Deep, commanding, warm. "Is this seat taken?" Emma looked up, and nearly dropped her glass. Standing before her was Alexander Hayes, CEO of Hayes Enterprises. He was impossibly handsome in a charcoal suit, his presence magnetic enough to turn heads across the room. His name filled magazines and financial reports, but never in her wildest dreams had she expected him to be here. "And no," Emma stammered, her pulse racing. "Please, sit." He lowered himself gracefully into the chair beside her. The air around him seemed charged, his cologne rich and woodsy. "Emma, right." His piercing blue eyes locked on hers. Her lips parted. "You know my name. I make it a point to," he said smoothly. Then, leaning close so only she could hear, he added, "Do me a favor. Pretend we're a couple, at least for tonight." Emma froze. "What?" Before she could react, he reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The warmth of his touch startled her, made her heart skip. Around them, curious glances were already flicking their way. "Don't look so shocked," he murmured, his lips curling into a confident smile. "Trust me, it'll be worth your while." Emma's breath caught. This had to be some kind of joke. Why would one of the most powerful men in the city want her, a single mom, a nobody, to play along? But then Lily's voice piped up. "Mommy, is he your boyfriend?" Alexander chuckled, low and smooth. "Something like that," he said, winking at Lily. Emma's cheeks flamed, but to her shock, her daughter giggled, delighted. And for the first time that evening, Emma realized something. She wasn't invisible anymore. Every eye in the room was on them. Part 2. The whispers grew louder. Emma could feel them brushing against her like a current. "Isn't that Alexander Hayes?" With her, his hand still rested over hers, steady, convincing. "Smile," he whispered, his voice low and teasing. She did, though her pulse was erratic. The music shifted to a slow ballad, and Alexander rose. He extended his hand, every motion deliberate. "Dance with me." Emma shook her head quickly. I don't dance." "Yes, you do," he countered smoothly, his eyes holding hers. "Trust me." Something in his tone left her no room to argue. She placed her hand in his, and he guided her onto the dance floor. The crowd blurred around them as he pulled her close, his palm firm at her waist, his steps confident. Emma's body remembered how to move, even if her heart stuttered with every beat. "You're good at this," she murmured. "So are you," he said, his gaze unwavering. "But I already knew you would be." Her brow furrowed. "You keep saying things like that. How do you know me?" His lips curved, though his eyes softened in a way that unsettled her. "Because I've noticed you, more than you realize." Her breath caught, but before she could ask, the song ended. Applause rose around them, but Alexander didn't let her hand go. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. People approached their table now, eager to meet the woman who had captured the attention of Alexander Hayes. Emma laughed more than she had in months, the weight of judgment replaced by curiosity and even admiration. Lily was smitten too. Alexander fetched her cake, listened to her chatter about school, and even drew a flower beside hers on the napkin. Emma found herself watching him when she shouldn't, noticing the ease of his smile, the warmth in his eyes when he looked at Lily, the way his presence shielded her from the whispers. Later, when the hall had grown quieter and Lily leaned sleepily against Emma's shoulder, Alexander finally spoke. "I owe you an explanation." Emma arched a brow. "That would be nice." He exhaled, his jaw tightening. "At events like this, people expect things from me, introductions, matches. I needed a reason to avoid certain arrangements tonight." "So I'm your excuse?" she asked. His gaze deepened. "Not an excuse, a choice." The words struck something in her chest. Dangerous, hopeful. When the evening ended, Alexander walked them to their car. His hand lingered at her back, protective and steady. "Thank you," Emma said quietly. "For whatever this was." He studied her under the moonlight, his expression unreadable. Then his voice dropped, rich and deliberate. "It doesn't have to end tonight." Emma's breath hitched. He opened her car door, offering the faintest of smiles. After all, pretending is only the beginning. As she drove away, Lily already dozing in the backseat, Emma touched her lips, still tingling from the ghost of his nearness. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to wonder.